Welcome back to the Command Your Brand Show. I am your host, Jeremy Ryan Slate, the CEO and co-founder of Command Your Brand. We help our clients to be heard on some of the biggest podcasts on the planet. You can grab our free brand authority analysis over at commandyourbrand.com/analysis. And guys, I'm very excited for the conversation that we're going to have today because we're going to talk about having a bigger life. We're going to talk about really making it go as an entrepreneur. And our guest today is Corrie George. So Corrie, thank you for hanging out with me today, sir.
Hey, thanks, Jeremy. Thanks for having me, man. And I look forward to our conversations. Like I said, I was following you on Instagram and just everything on civilization, Roman Empire, kind of what's going on today. I think there's a lot of interesting conversations to be had. And of course, obviously, business, entrepreneurship, and making it in 2026.
Well, it's kind of interesting because I feel like it's not really getting easier for entrepreneurs out there. Honestly, it's requiring a lot more hard work than things used to require in the past. And that's why I think having the right data really is a big part of success.
Yeah, and there's a lot of data out there right now. I mean,
yeah. So for people that may not be familiar with you and what you do, Corrie, just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm a business owner out of Canada. I just relocated to the United States, like 122,000 other Canadians that have relocated from Canada to the United States. I still have a house there, but we're focusing on our expansion now in the United States. So we have a business. We have two businesses in Canada. We're going to keep them running. We're going to keep them employing people. I employ about 240 people. Across Ontario and Quebec. That's not going anywhere, but my expansion focus now, I'm the chairman of two businesses. I'm not the CEO, so I'm not in the day-to-day, but my focus is expanding business into the US now as well. So I'm a door-to-door salesman, college dropout, who, studied business, found the right mentors, and grew my companies to where they are today. Took my businesses through COVID. I've been through a pretty severe borderline terminal or chronic illness where I lost like 70 pounds in a month. I weighed like 110 pounds at my lowest.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So been through that. I started my business out of my condo in 2017. Last year we did 46 million after being wiped down to zero in 2021 during COVID. Wow. So it's been a journey the last 8.5, 9 years.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about your backstory first. So you started rebuilding a mini bike you earned through door-to-door sales. I want to talk a little bit about that. What did that teach you about earning versus entitlement? Because I will say, so in my younger years, I know I don't look like I'm almost 40, but I'm a year away. And,
oh, shit. Dude, give me that skin regimen, brother.
I did newspapers from the time I was 11, started with a root of 80, and by the time I get up to 18, I had almost 400 customers.
Okay.
And I also sold personal training door to door. So I think there's a lot of value in kind of those door to door skills that you just can't teach people unless they've done it.
Yeah.
But I guess, what did that teach you about earning, and what did it teach you about that versus entitlement?
So my dad bought me a mini bike that was a 1971. It needed a piston. It needed a new gearbox. It had no carburetor on it. It was missing the exhaust. It was rusted out. And some of the other kids that I was growing up with, their parents just bought them like new ATVs and new dirt bikes and stuff. But my dad came home with this bike and he's like, all right, I got the bike. Everything else is on you. It doesn't run. The motor needs to be rebuilt. It needs a transmission, needs a carburetor, needs this, needs that, and it needs a full refurbish. Needs to be fully refurbished. So that's all on you. And your allowance of whatever it was, $3 a week, ain't going to cover it. I think it was $5 a week. So he's like, go figure it out. I'm like, well, what do I do? He's like, well, there's 90 houses on this street. Why don't you go talk to them? And that's what I did. So it taught me to work for money, for sure. I mean, I wish that he had taught me a little bit more about, don't just spend all your money on a toy, which I had to break a habit of. I didn't break that habit for a while. But it taught me to work, and it taught me, to communicate to get what I want, like really to communicate to get what I want. So I started knocking on doors. I'm 11 years old at that point. I started shoveling. It was the winter time. It was right before winter when he got me the bike. So I started like shoveling driveways. And then in the spring, I started cutting grass at like 12, which is not even legal, I don't think. But
I don't know.
whatever.
My parents had me doing it at like 10 or 11. So
Yeah. Yeah. So I was like cutting grass, and I created flyers for contracts, and then I started selling people contracts to like cut their grass, charge extra for sweeping and trimming and all these things. So it just taught me to be, entrepreneurial for sure. Um, and yeah, that it also, showed me the value of money, you know.
But I guess when you look at that, then, kind of like looking at our modern world, I think that's actually something that's pretty severely missing. And I guess, why do you think that is? Why do people kind of lack the understanding of kind of the value and kind of the responsibility and what it takes to earn money?
I think, I mean, business is real simple. I mean, I look at it like this. You draw a line down a piece of paper. You got a cost side and you got a revenue side. You look at a profit and loss. Top line is revenue, right? And then you've got all of, right, your different revenue lines, cost of goods sold, and then you got your fixed expenses. And that's the two sides of business. And if you look at how we educate kids, we educate them to be on the cost side of business. So look at every program in school, whether it's accounting, economics, marketing, administration, HR, all of that stuff. If you were to say, where does it fit on the profit and loss? All of it is on the cost side of the business. Okay. So you're teaching people to be, and you look culturally too, you're teaching people that being on that side of business is stable, where you're going to work, you're going to get a salary, right? But really, it's a shifting of responsibility for the production of income from you to the company itself, or from you onto a different division. So you're always dependent on somebody else to produce the money so that you can get your safe salary. That's how our colleges, I don't know as much about the United States, but in Canada, the business programs, they don't teach these guys how to run businesses. And that's why
Yeah.
if you look at the stats,
Well, I know even so I went to Seton Hall, and a lot of our professors were kind of failed business people in the business school.
yeah, yeah, of course, right? Like, who are the teachers? So I think that that it's a huge problem. And I also think that if you taught people sales, if you teach people how to communicate, how to put people at ease, if you teach them sales, you teach them the understanding of, understanding what are people's buying motives, what are people's concerns, how to get someone actually in communication with you, so that they've always got what's going on in their head. How do you actually confront that and bring it up? And the elephant in the room. How do you bring the elephant in the room up,
Yeah.
and then have a conversation so the customer's not like tense or apprehensive? But if you taught that, you would have a public that would see through a lot of manipulation. So if you teach sales, if you teach a lot of this marketing and PR technology, people will see through the media. They would see through journalists. They would see through the manipulation. And I think there's been a motive to not teach it, to be
It's
real.
interesting.
Yeah, that's my viewpoint.
Well, it's also kind of the way that the system's set up as well. Like if you look at, as a new business, if you're trying to get funding, it's actually very hard for a new business to get funding, because they want to see your W-2s and they want to see a lot of these other things that when somebody's starting a business and they're trying to go all in, they're not going to have those things. But if you want to get a student loan, that's extremely easy to get and you're going to have it forever.
A student loan, you can't default your way out of either.
That's correct.
I don't know if that's how it in the U.S., but in Canada,
It is how it is in the U.S.
You can't default your way out of a student loan. In Canada, we have more student debt than all other debt combined. I think no. So that's a North American stat. North America, there's more student debt than all credit card debt combined.
That's correct.
So all consumer debt compared to student debt. And student debt, the majority of it is held from 18 to 35-year-olds. So you have like one generation or two generations, our demographic, carrying more debt than everybody else. So yeah, I just don't think we're teaching the real things in business school. Look at the stats too, right? The stats show you 9 out of 10 businesses fail in the first 5 years, right? And that's not like a cliche. Like, that's the statistic. It's between wherever you get the stats, either high 80s or low 90% fail in the first 5 years. So doesn't that show you that the training system for education is broken for that particular field? Because if 9 out of 10 airplanes fell out of the sky, you probably wouldn't get in one. And you would then look at the aviation school and say, what's wrong with the aviation schools that 9 out of 10 pilots crash and burn?
So I guess let me ask you then, because I know with what you guys are building at YESA, you're actually focusing on non-traditional education paths, and I think this is kind of a good spot for us to talk about that. Why are you focusing on that in terms of how you're kind of building your team?
So yeah, so YESA is a trade school for sales. So that's what we did. So we took a typical model of volume sales positions. I go and acquire a large territory to sell a product or service from a corporation that can actually deliver volume. And most companies fill those positions with entry-level people. They hire anybody with a pulse, and that's who fills those positions. But if you put somebody skilled in those positions, they're $100,000 to $200,000, $250,000 a year job if you could put somebody competent and trained in them, right? But nobody applies for those positions. So I saw a void. I saw like an empty space there. And I looked at our education system in Canada because I was at a college where this kind of dawned on me. I was at a college. I had sponsored a competition. It's like a business competition where they do like a mock sales presentation. All the students come forward and they present to the industry experts. I don't know if you guys do that down here, but basically a bunch of industry experts show up and we're looking to recruit for our company. I was working for a $4 billion construction company in Vancouver, British Columbia. And we sponsored this college event where they would come and they would present a product or service and they would do a sales pitch. And I watched like student after student after student come up and speak and do like a sales pitch. And it was terrible. And this was a technical institute, a very respected with the best marketing and entrepreneurship and sales program in the country. Okay. So this is not like a nothing school. And I'm watching these guys present and girls present, and it's horrendous. And I'm like, okay, sales guys who have been with me 6 months will clobber these guys, clobber them. And they've only been with me 6 months. And this school has had these kids for 2 years. It was the end of their 2-year program. And I'm like, okay, great. So isn't that a problem? So I'm like, great, I'm going to build my education program and I'm going to attach it to a practicum, because every other real trade, every other real skill has a practicum. You want to become a welder, or you want to become an electrician, or you want to become an engineer. There's a practicum. There's a doingness in a particular field. But for business, what's the doingness? Like, you see a guy's got an MBA. Does that mean he knows how to run a business? Like, when you look, if you're hiring somebody,
the U.S. government hires the most MBAs in the country. So there you go.
Yeah, how's that going? Right? How's that going? So, if you look at it, the result is an indicator. It's like, are these guys actually successful in their field? And the answer is no. Because when you see, Bachelor of Business or Masters in Business, it doesn't mean anything to the employer. Like, oh, this guy knows how to run a company. This guy knows how to run a profit and loss. I can give this guy a business. No, because what do they say? Oh, he has no experience. That's what they say, right? He has no experience. So a real education would combine both. And education doesn't work when it's all theory anyway, right? So it's all theory for 4 years. And, oh, no, I did some group projects. Okay, great. What percentage? And how realistic is a group project? Who wrote the actual project itself? Like, what are its outcomes? So what we decided to do is, great. Our guys are going to study. They're going to do a week or two in class. That's fine. And we're going to do a whole bunch of drills with these guys. We teach these kids how to speak. We teach them public speaking. We teach them how to shake hands, which is such a fundamental that we don't teach. Like, literally, you probably do 200 handshake drills before you'll ever talk to a customer, until that handshake is a proper handshake, right? With eye contact, right? And what was your name, sir? Please, John, nice to meet you. Jeremy, nice to meet you, right? Proper handshake. Iron out all the bugs. We teach these guys how to do a basic pitch, how to put the customer at ease, and how to read the customer right away. Because there's no point in teaching this kid a script if the customer's like, right? Like, if he's not reading the room, if he's not reading the customer, like, dude,
that's an extremely good point, by the way, because right? I don't think a lot of people are very good at reading people. I did a keynote for a group last night, and I was the last speaker at this event. and I'm reading the room, and I look at the notes I had ready to go for this talk, and I'm like, oh, this is not going to go over well.
Yeah.
So I kind of just on the fly redid the whole thing, because you have to make sure that your communication actually matches to who's in front of you.
Yeah. Dude, that's it, right? And how many of these sales companies, and I'm kind of disenfranchised with the self-improvement world, by the way. I did
Yeah.
all of it, dude. I did every workshop you can think of. And these sales trainers online, it blows my mind. And they're teaching slick one-liners and what to say. It's like, dude, teach the guy how to pay attention. Teach the guy how to read the customer, how to interrupt his own pitch, right? How to cut it short. Teach that sales rep how to throw himself off the porch or get off the phone before the customer kicks him off the phone. To at least, because then you teach him how to be real. So we teach all this stuff. And then we do 90 minutes a day. Once the guy's through the basic onboarding, it's first, 7-8 days in class. Then it's shadowing for 2 weeks plus in class. It's like 2 hours in class, 6 hours in the field. Then it goes down to about 90 minutes in class, online and in person with drills, all sorts of different drills and theory mixed together. And then they do 7 hours in the field every day. And they get paid. So they don't pay me to be in my company because it's a sales business. So if they make a sale and they get paid $90 or $100 on that sale, I'm probably making 200 plus, right? Like I'm going to run because I got to pay overrides and run my business.
Sure.
But I make money when the kid is successful. So I only am incentivized to teach him what's going to make him successful.
So I guess looking at that, then, when you're looking at a good salesperson, what are those traits or those skills that make up a good salesperson? Because I think, as you mentioned, in kind of the personal development, online business world, there's a lot of what we're told it is. But in your opinion, what does make up a good salesperson, and what are some of those, hard skills and soft skills?
I mean, I think number one is number one. And number one is the guy. This comes before even sales. This is any particular field. Does the guy have the ability? Is he running his own life, or is it still being run by somebody else? Meaning, can he sign up to a way of living, like a philosophy, or not? Because if he has mommy and daddy in his ear, or she has mommy and daddy in her ear, like let's say the person's under 25, like the age keeps going up, by the way. I can't believe how many of these kids live with their parents, and their parents are still the number one influencer in their life.
Yes.
I can't work with somebody who has another advisor as their number one for their career. So that's number one. Like, there's no point in me teaching this guy the value of discipline, the value of practice, the value of stick and stay, right? The learning skills increment by increment. Putting in the work. If mommy is telling him he needs to go back to college because mommy has a government job and mommy believes that going to college is the safest thing for him to do, or for her to do, there's no point in me. If I can't get the guy to be his own person, or get the girl to be her own person and make a choice as to who her mentor or who her advisor is going to be for this particular field. Like if she was learning a sport, great, you pick a coach, you pick a trainer. You're not going to try and learn 5 different sports at once because your parents told you to. So, or your friends, that's the other one. So it's either the parents or their friends are the biggest influence and advisor to them. So if they can't choose an opinion leader, if they don't have the ability of determinism to make their own choice as to who they're going to allow to influence them, they're basically going to be, they're going to manifest all sorts of stuff. They're going to be up and down. They're going to be inconsistent. And I'm going to put a bunch of energy into trying to pull this guy in a direction. And I'm not going to realize that there's somebody else in his ear, whether it's at home. And they might even mean well, but they might just have a broken philosophy. So that's the first thing we do, by the way, on day one. When we hire somebody, the first course we run is, who do you listen to? And it's an entire course, basic course, on how do you determine who you get advice from and who you don't. And the first people we got to strip away is usually getting them to look at mom and dad. Hey, are mom and dad where you want to be in your career, truly?
Yeah.
And do you want to take as long as they did to get where you're looking to go? That's the first thing that we got to get the guy correct on. Everything else we could teach. I could teach the guy how to read the door, or how to read the phone call, You can teach the person how to take rejection. We can run 100 rejection drills in a row, 500 rejection drills in a row. We actually have those. We can teach the guy how to handle the internal dialogue, because every time you start at zero in new sales, right? Like a new day, and all of a sudden you're on zero. Yesterday you were killing it. Today you're on zero, and the voice starts, right? What am I doing? What if I zero today? What if I don't make any sales? Right? Am I really cut out for this? We can teach the guy how to handle all that. But I can't fix the guy. I can't help the guy, get the guy set up if there's someone else undoing the work.
So let me ask you this then. Like, what about character development? Because I feel like that's a big part of it too. And I feel like it's a big knock that sales get, that a lot of times, it's somebody trying to be slick and trying to just, move something they may or may not care about. So I guess when you're looking at salespeople, number one, that obviously isn't how good salespeople are. But number two, how do you handle character development? Because I think that is a really important part of it as well.
I mean, we have a course on ethics, but I mean, again, it's stripping away what they think is sales, like Jordan Belfort and some of these slick sales trainers and who are teaching people to be manipulative, right? So character development is it. First of all, one of our philosophies is win, lose, or draw. They love you. So win at the door or win on the phone, lose on the phone or draw. That customer was impressed by your professionalism. You didn't antagonize them, and you left them better than you found them. Okay. That's the first thing we need to teach, because if we're not getting this person to leave a door or a phone call or a customer better than they found them, then they become a mercenary salesperson. When we become a mercenary salesperson, what happens is they will do anything to make a sale. All right. And they're not doing win, win, win. It's not win for the customer, win for the company, win for the sales rep. There's usually a zero-sum game that they're trying to play where like it's win-loss. Those guys never last. They always jump from company to company. They can come in, they can be slick, they can sound really good, they can put up a whole bunch of deals, but then unless they're a sociopath, they will get unsold on what they're doing because they deep down will not feel good, and they'll start pulling back. They'll get literally unsold. And the sales guy that comes in and doesn't go for the shortcut. He doesn't dance around in these gray areas all the time. He's going to build skills. It's because look what happens in sales, right? The company doesn't audit their own sales enough. It's the company's fault for the character development. You get an 18-year-old kid, a 20-year-old kid, a 25-year-old kid, and they are kids at 25. And you're not auditing. See, the owner's getting high on this kid's sales. It's like, oh, this kid's a killer. I never buy it. Right? We always do we have a qualifications division or department in our business, and we're going to audit a lot of those sales, and we're going to find out. So if this guy's killing it, I want to make sure he's actually killing it for the customer so that I'm not rewarding him, putting him on a pedestal. I don't want to create a reward system for this guy to go out ethics or to this guy to compromise his own integrity. I want to catch it quick, and I want to correct the guy. I don't want to fire him immediately. I want to correct him, but I do not want to incentivize this guy taking shortcuts. Yeah. Because if I'm doing that, I'm going to mess the guy up. Right. So I need to penalize that behavior and then obviously educate the guy out of it. But I just think that that's what businesses aren't doing. Businesses, they're looking for the money. They're falling into the same trap the sales rep is. They think the short-term gain is going to be the money. Yeah. And then it always bites them in the ass because the sales guy gets disenfranchised. He ends up quitting. And then you get a bunch of upset customers and the cycle repeats. So if you got to qualify your own sales, you got to actually investigate your own customers. And this guy did record numbers. Great. Let's audit it. Let's audit the sale.
What would you say separates a good salesperson from a great salesperson? And what is that thing that's different between the two?
Ability to stay sold, period. Ability to stay sold on their product and service. See, you got to understand that counter intention in sales is the norm. So this guy gets, right, they come into the company, they get sold on the product, right? They go through orientation, whether they're selling cars or they're selling, telecom or they're selling coffee. I don't care what they're selling, but they go through an orientation and education process. And if they're working for a good company, They learn about quality control, and they learn about why the products, has its own value proposition, and they learn all of the features and advantages and benefits of that product and service and company. They get sold on the product and service. And then we teach them skills. But if we just did that really well, got the guy really sold on the product and service, whatever natural ability he'll have in selling and communicating that conviction, he'll do okay. Then we can start building it. But what happens over time is that guy's talking to the unsold all day, every day. That's his job. Unless he's in inside sales, continually talking to existing customers. If he's an outbound salesperson, or he's a new account rep or an SDR or whatever you call them, he talks to the unsold every day. So he hears everybody's reasons why they're not with that company. He hears everybody's reasons not for buying. He hears all of their objections. He hears all of their complaints. And that's what that sales rep listens to constantly, right? Now, companies need to build a system to counteract that slow. It's a pernicious effect. It's slow and creeping, where that sales rep eventually becomes unsold. That's normal. But if you have a good salesperson, okay, yeah, he can be slick and have really good skills and objection handling and closing skills, and but if you have a good salesperson who knows how to stay sold on their product, meaning they revisit their product and service, they follow up with their customers, right? They keep their delivery promises in. That guy will produce a long time. You'll have him long enough to make him good, right? And that's the differentiator, in my opinion. The sales guys who get unsold easily, I don't care how slick he is. Yeah, he could have a monster month, right? He could make 30 grand a month for himself. I have that happen all the time in our organization. Kid comes in, kills it, makes 25K in a month, 30K in a month. 6 months later, he's bored. Oh yeah, see, he doesn't even know why he's bored. He got unsold somewhere. Somebody said something to him. Somebody said something.
So how does someone, I guess, because obviously you have a way your organization does it, but people listening, they might not be connected with you yet. How does someone handle for themselves when they feel like that in that situation? Like what do they do to resell themselves?
So, what I do is I visit the service department or whatever that is, service or delivery. I call my sold customers and do a check on my product and service, and I make sure that they're happy. I review my literature on my product and service. I speak to ownership and leadership. This is a business responsibility too. The business has a responsibility to keep the salesperson, that sales team sold on the product and service. That means visiting success stories, visiting testimonials. So the sales rep can do this on his own, visiting the success stories, visiting the testimonials of successful customers, visiting the features, advantages, and benefits again, right? Owning the product, utilizing the product, brushing up on their industry material, looking for the plus points, because we can get hung up as business people on our out points. And you got to be looking at the plus points. The customer is going to point out, or the prospects are going to point out the out points on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So you have to be visiting the plus points on a continuous basis and know that it's a phenomena to get unsold. The thing is, the thing you're thinking with becomes affected, right? So it's a bit of a trap, right? It's a bit of a trap because the analytical part of your mind is getting unsold, but you have to remember that and be like, okay, this is normal. This is normal. By the way, we own two companies right now. We owned Grant Cardone. I was Grant Cardone's president of sales for Canada for 6.5 years. And so I've had multiple salespeople who were selling Cardone be like, oh, I want to go sell for the other division and sell the other products and services because I love the company, but I just I'm really unsold on this product. And then the people selling our telecom product were like, hey, listen, I really just want to go sell Grant Cardone products and services because I'm just unsold on our telecom product. I'm like, of course.
Avoiding the actual problem, right? Like kind of course. Running off to somewhere else.
Yeah, because they don't hear all the objections about the other product because they don't sell the other product. So that's where the grass is greener on the other side thing always comes in, right? The guy's always gonna, or relationships too, right? Like they say, you're with your wife and they say, it wears off or the spark wears off, whatever. It's like, dude, like any girl you see on the internet, on Instagram, okay, let's see her, after the makeup's off, after you've been together for 2 years, before she's, had her coffee in the morning. Like, you're going to see that Instagram person eventually fully without all the glamour and the veneer. That's the job too. The moment you start selling the product and service, you're going to learn about all the problems of your product and service. And that's just business. You have to be willing to get over that. So that's what would differentiate a good salesperson is they have the maturity to recognize that getting unsold is normal. Every product and service has its problems, and to keep focusing on the plus points of your product and service and do the work. Read the material again, read the literature again, review the customer testimonials. They have to have that discipline.
Well, Corey, in looking at the company you've built in YESA, I guess what stands out the most to you about that success story of what you guys are doing?
We invest more in training and development. We obsess with rep experience. So I treat our salespeople like customers. That's my idea. Like that's been my ideology is I treat my sales reps the way I want my sales reps to treat my customers. Because if you look at it, right, most salespeople complain about their leads or they complain about their prospects.
Bad leads, right?
Right, yeah. But then look what sales managers do. Mm-hmm. Sales managers and directors complain about their salespeople. So they're just doing the same thing, right? And then owners complain about their staff. So you have to take responsibility. If you want your sales reps to take responsibility for the customer experience, for the prospects' reactions, for the leads, if you want them to take responsibility for the result, then you have to take responsibility for the salespeople. So we treat our salespeople like they're our customer. So I want to become the best place to work for salespeople. I want to make sure I provide them the best training. I've given them no excuses to not succeed. And I want to run the best sports camp in the game. We treat sales like a sport. So we study, you study the Roman Empire. I study elite athletes. Not that I ever was one. I did bodybuilding and some other stuff, but I've never been a pro athlete myself, but I've been a pro salesperson.
Yeah.
A competitive, like nationally in door-to-door sales leagues. I've been a competitive salesperson at the highest levels. And I treat it like a sport. So I'm like, great, let's run our company like a sports camp. Like you can't just teach theory. You're not going to make a guy good at basketball by showing him gameplay footage only. Now, gameplay footage would be important, one piece of it, but then you'd actually have to break the entire sport down into little drills. Well, if you break sales down into little drills for every little aspect of it, and then you tie some of those drills together, and then you put scrimmages together where you actually have role play scrimmages. Like scrimmages are different than drills. Drills are not, scrimmages and drills are different. And then what you do is you got to put the guy in the field with a pro. This is expensive.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Businesses don't want to make the investment up front, right? I mean, our training department is about $1.5 million a year. Just on, that's just staffing.
Wow.
These are guys that are not now producing sales for me because they're running rookies. These are my best guys, by the way, and my training team are my best guys. So I'm taking my best guys who have the IQ to, learn the theory and the axioms and the principles and fundamentals behind what they're doing. Because some guys are really good, but that doesn't mean that they understand why they're good. So I take those guys and we invest in the rep experience. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to create the ultimate experience where any person who has the will, right, who has their own determinism, can come in and learn the craft. That's what I'm trying to do. And we just rolled out we're rolling out a new curriculum right now. And man, building a curriculum is a ton of work. But we're investing millions of dollars in developing the ultimate sales curriculum. And I think that's where we're different from other companies. They are focused on selling as their number one, product. Their number one valuable final goal is selling the product. We have two valuable final products. One is selling the product and service. Two is building elite salespeople. Those are our two products as a company. And that's how we run the company. And that's how we invest money in the company.
The thing I can really appreciate that is one of the conversations I end up having with people again and again and again is if you kind of look at not just the sales world, but just the work world in general. One of the biggest things missing is apprenticeships. And this was something that, in the Middle Ages, people did it. Before the Industrial Revolution, they did a lot more. People still do it in the trades, but there's no idea of real apprenticeships. That's where you get that on the ground experience. And it teaches you two things. Should I be doing this, or how do I actually get the skills to do this? And I think it's something sadly missing just in the work world in general.
It's missing for sales. It's missing for business. It's missing for a lot of, and you can see it in society of like all the areas where things fall down. It's missing. It is actually missing. Look at like all of the areas where there's trouble. Like, let's just look at driving.
Yeah.
If you look at our society and you say, okay, great, how many problems traffic-wise would be resolved with better drivers? Like, how many of these guys have their attention right in front of their bumper instead of having it 5 cars, 10 cars, 20 cars up, seeing what's happening? Like, I love watching traffic when there's waves of traffic. You can watch the traffic pulse. These people are staring at the person in front of them. So you can look way up ahead and see that all the brake lights are on and you can coast. And these guys will zoom right up to that congestion and they all hit the brakes and it creates a traffic pulse. People don't know how to drive. They don't know how to operate their vehicles. But we have a society that profits on ignorance, right? So when you have an incompetent public, right, then we have more insurance, right? You have more repairs, okay? You have more of these electronic features. These cars now, like cars are built for idiots now. Like they're self-driving. They alert you. The car, like anytime I rent a car, I have to turn off the car hitting the brakes if you get close to somebody.
We just got a new car and it has that lane control thing. I just figured out how to take it off. It is so annoying. It's like you're not in the exact middle of the lane. Oh my gosh,
dude. And when I'm cooking, man, and I go to change a lane and it tries to stop me. I'm like, so my point is, like, if we look at society of where it falls down, it always falls down from an educational perspective, an inability to pass knowledge down from the best performers to everybody else, right? That's what education should be. Education needs to be a study of the best practices and the best performers in a particular field. It needs to be a codification and a standardization of that. And then it needs to be that skill broken down into step-by-step learning format. But that's not what our curriculums are. That's not what our education system is. I mean, if we actually made everyone do a driving apprenticeship before they drove, like, I don't know how it works in the US, but in Canada, you could just write a test.
Yeah.
And then you can do a 5-minute in-car and you pass.
Well, in New Jersey, we have to do, I think, like, it's like a couple hours of like behind the wheel with a driving instructor. And I know, we had a nanny for a couple of years, and my wife was like super comfortable with her driving with our kids because in Hungary, they required like almost 100 hours of driving experience or something like that.
I love that. I love that. Watch what happens to the roads if we pass something like that.
Yeah.
Right. Society's kind of frustrating for the competent. Like, I was driving here today, and these guys in front of me didn't know how to use the traffic circle. That stuff. Oh, dude, that bugs me. You see the issue everywhere. So I don't remember how we got onto this, but just if you look at
we were talking about apprenticeships, just kind of the idea of like actually having on the job training and actually having experience that way.
Yeah. I mean, look at how can you run a business, first of all, if you don't know how to confront every area of that profit and loss sheet? A profit and loss is just like the pulse of a business, right? And it should include every area. So if you don't know how to generate revenue, you don't know business, period. And then if you don't understand management from how to lead people, then you don't understand business. So these are, if I wanted to be a business person, I would spend a decade working for other people. And this is what I did. I took the safest approach to becoming a successful business owner. Start as a salesperson. Well, first dropped out of school because I was in a business class and my business teacher, business communications was the course. I'm like, this guy's never run a business. Like, he never had run a business. He had written the textbook, though. He was selling the tech. He had to buy his textbook. I don't know if you guys got that thing going on where the professor writes the textbook and then you have to buy his textbook.
They write a new version every year.
And they write a new version, so you can't buy it from somebody else. That's right. So I'm like, this guy's never run a business. So I dropped out. did a sales role, and listened to audiobooks on business. Now, I got a lot of bad ideas from a lot of these self-help people that I had to undo later. But that was my career. So sales. And then they're like, oh, wow, you're really good. Because I was listening to books, I'm like, oh, that's kind of what I'm doing here. I see what I'm doing. And I started studying myself. I started recording my own sales and looking at what I was doing. Now, I had a gift, to be real. I didn't build this. I didn't come into this world and build this skill from scratch. This skill, there was some talent there on how to get into communication. Then I became a manager and ran teams. I was 21 and I was running teams of 12 guys, 15 guys, and then they made me an assistant GM at 21 to 22, and I was running an office of 60 sales reps.
Wow.
So, and it's funny is when they would ask me how old I was, I would tell them to guess, and I had a beard, so they're just like, "Oh, what are you, like 30?" I'm like, "Oh, that's a good guess. How old are you?" And when I turned 30, I realized I'd been 30 for 10 years. So funny, on my 30th birthday, they're like, "Hey, happy 30th birthday." I'm like, "Shit, man, I've been 30 for 10 years."
Yeah.
But I did the safest approach possible. Sales manager, and I studied on management. I took extra money and I went and took courses and studied real sales managers and studied real guys who had run real sales businesses. And then from there, I became a trainer and then did that role. And then from there, became a director and did that role. And that was in corporate. I went and worked at a corporation and was the director in a sales organization and slowly put all these skills together. I did sales recruitment. And then by the time I was 27, I'm like, okay, I've got 150K put away. I've got this, I got that. I'm going to start my own business. And I'm just going to do sales though. I'm not going to sell my own product because I don't know delivery yet.
Mm-hmm.
The thing, I didn't know delivery. I knew sales. So I'm like, great, I'll start a sales company. And I didn't know finance that well, but my partner did. So I'm like, perfect. You do finance. I'm going to run the company, but you're going to do the finance piece. Him and I agreed. We're still in business today. But it worked because all I focused on was what I had known, which is how to recruit, how to train, and how to run a sales team. And we sold someone else's product. And then the next step was, okay, great. Now we're going to grow the company. I'm going to focus on selling this other product that's more, it's more volume. And we learned that skill of running, instead of running a team of 10, running a team of 100, learn that skill. And then now I'm like, okay, I'm tired of selling other people's products. So now, last year, we rolled out Canada First, which is our home security product, which is a real home security product, not the illusion of security because you have an alarm system, but actually a product that keeps people out of your house, makes the house burglar proof, reinforces the windows and doors. And then we confronted that. I'm like, great, now we've mastered the sales game. Now we're going to learn how to do delivery. So I did like increment by increment by increment by increment by increment of more difficulty, adding in one new thing. And I think a lot of business people go and start a business and they're confronting everything for the first time.
Yes.
And it's like, dude, like I worked for other people for 11 years, 10 years, and I studied that whole time. I didn't party. Like I quit partying when I was 20 years old. I quit hard drugs, quit drinking. And by the way, at 20, I was addicted to drugs. I'd been arrested 3 times. So it's not like I was in good shape. And I ended up living in a warehouse for 8 months.
Oh my gosh.
So I started below where most people should start. But from 20 to 27, 28, I just worked and studied. I took little vacations to recharge, but like nothing glamorous. I played with my cars a little bit. I'm a bit of a car guy, but not much. I gave up the cars actually from 22 to 27. So I didn't buy any fancy muscle cars or anything. I just worked and studied. And I did it in 8 years. Wow. Where I became a business owner in 8 years. And then I didn't really make any real money though. The first 2 years of my business, I made less money than I did in corporate. I was making $250,000 a year at 26 in corporate. My first year in business, I lost money. Like I put my 150K into the business. I paid myself 45 grand. The next year I made 140, but that didn't make up for the loss from the previous year. I didn't start making money till like 3 for myself, more than I made in corporate till like 5 years into the business. So, but people aren't willing to go through that.
Yes.
So that was a little, I don't know how we got on that either, but a little bit about my story.
Well, no, it's, I think it really does hit the point that experience is the best teacher. And I think for a lot of people that experience, they're not having it. So I think from that, this is something that has a lot of benefit to people. Just seeing how living life and working hard can have a ton of value.
Yeah. And like, I just looked at living my life in chapters. I'm like, great, this is a sales chapter. I'm a master sales for the next year and a half. I'm not going to worry about missing out on, man, do you know how many summers I was knocking doors or I was just doing sales and I'd be in a neighborhood, a residential neighborhood, and I was running a sales team and there's a barbecue going on. And I'm like, oh, look at those. And I'm jealous. I'm envious of these people who are just going to a barbecue. Or I'm outside in the rain and I'm watching somebody drive by in a nice warm car and I see them drinking their coffee and I'm outside in the freaking cold in Alberta. In the rain in Alberta, it's like cold and it like hits you in the face. And I'm looking at these normal people and I'm like, I envy that. But I'm like, I'm going to keep going. Like I'm envying people. Dude, I'm coming out of work one day. I was running the Grant Cardone sales business. Man, that was hard, by the way. When you sell sales training, you got to be so good because when you sell sales training, there is no merit to the product except how good your sales process is. Like when you sell a car, if like I wanted to sell you a BMW M5, right? And I messed up my sales process, but you really like the car. You're like, all right, great, I'll buy the car. But when I'm selling you sales training and I don't handle your objections well, or I don't put you at ease, or I don't do a proper fact find with you, you're like, well, your product must not be very good. Right? So I'm selling the Grant Cardone product and service back in 2018, and I walk outside and I see this guy cutting grass. Him and two guys, they got their truck pulled up in their trailer, and they got like some blue collar music on in the truck. It's like probably the stereotypical like Bachman Turner Overdrive, like taking care of business, like that type of shit, right?
Yeah.
And buddy's having a coffee and smoking a cigarette. Other guy's on the trimmer. I looked at that. I was like, that looks like fun. Like I envy that. And I walked inside and went to my office that day. Meanwhile, my business was doing $3 million a year, $4 million a year. I was probably making like 150 grand a year at that point, like still putting things together. I'm wearing a suit and tie. I'm my own boss. And I was like, why was I admiring the guy cutting the grass? So I started looking at that like thought process. I'm like, why am I envying him? And I realized because he knows what he's doing. And I don't know what I'm doing still. And
wow.
I realized what I valued was knowing what to do when you got to work. And so many people think that they need a break on the weekends. They need to drink. They need to smoke weed. They need to take their mind off of their problems at work. Or have you ever heard, obviously you've heard this, like, oh, he's taking his work home with him. The only reason the guy's taking his work home with him is because he didn't know what to do when he was at work, right? And he doesn't have a plan to solve what's been put in front of him at work. Now, you're always going to encounter new things, but if it's a perpetual situation you find yourself in where you don't know what you're doing at work, you're going to bring your work home with you. You're not going to value it. You're going to need the weekend. So when you hear Grant Cardone or these self-help guys, I like Grant out of all of them, but they say, oh, you got to work every day and blah, blah, blah. People are getting so angry at him. What they need to understand, and what Grant needs to understand, he needs to be a little nicer about it, is that guy doesn't know what he's doing at work and he needs to withdraw. He needs the space from work to clear the mind out, to get his nerves back, to get refocused. He needs the break. But if he spent his time studying his craft and learning what's going on at work, the stress level at work would come way down. But these self-help guys in this whole industry says you need to work 7 days a week and you need to grind it out and they're totally missing why the guy is backed off of work, why the guy's partying on the weekends, why the guy's so looking forward to TGIF, or why the guy's looking forward to the vacation, because he doesn't know what he's doing. So I recognized that because I also cut grass like when I was growing up, and I was on a crew when I was like 17, where I was like on one of those crews that would do like commercial lawn care, and it was fun. But I was like, that's why I valued it, because the guy knows what he's doing. He goes to work, he does his job, he goes home, it's finished. He's not the guy cutting the grass doesn't go home and say, oh shit, I didn't know. Oh, Dad, I didn't know how to trim that edge today. Fuck, what am I going to do tomorrow? Like, he doesn't do that.
Yeah.
And you know what's crazy? Someone taught him how to cut grass. He
Yeah.
didn't read a book about it. He probably someone taught him. He got mentored. He
Yeah.
did an apprenticeship, right? And that's why it works.
Yeah. Well, Corey, I've really enjoyed this conversation, man.
Yeah.
We got really deep in the second half here, actually, compared to where we started in the beginning. So I really enjoyed this. But for people that are watching and they want to connect with you and learn more about what you're doing, how's going to be the best way for them to do that?
You could follow me on social media for sure. It's Corrie George official. So Corrie spelled like a girl, Corrie, and then George, George. You can, probably that's probably the best way. You can follow our company YESA. So it's YESA, YESA on Instagram. On all the social platforms, but mostly on Instagram. Canada First is the other company. So we have the home fortification product I was telling you about, where we basically took a product that was designed for U.S. embassies and banks to make windows blast proof. And we put that window film and we do door reinforcement that they would do in government buildings. We do it on residential homes.
Wow.
And we do it in a way that's not overly expensive. So it's not for the elite. We're like looking to bring a real solution because Canada's got a major crime problem. We've got the most property crime in the Greater Toronto area than any city in North America per capita.
Wow.
More property crime. So it's pretty bad. And so that company's called Canada First. And we have all sorts of solutions. And we actually have a playbook that we give away for free. So if people want to get something out of, checking us out, they can also check out canadafirst.com/gift. And basically my mentality was selling a product. So you can see how I live this is we look to educate buyers and give information away for free so that you don't need to buy from me. My whole goal is this. I want to make my company the best. And then I want to educate buyers on how to shop the industry. And if I educate you, then you can go and use our information because we might not be in your area. They might be listening in an area where I don't offer services in those areas, but they can use our playbook. They can download our playbook and they can use that to shop competitors. And that's always been my mentality is if we become advisors in the industry, if we become the advisors to the space, we'll always win. There'll always be enough money to go around and we'll give information away. We give education away. So if you want to know how to fortify your home, how to make your home burglar proof, canadafirst.com/gift. That's a free playbook. By the way, you don't need to sign up. So you don't need to put in your email. It's not a funnel. It's not what do you call that? It's a landing page, but it's not like it's not a marketing trap. Do you know what I mean? Like you literally could just go to that website, get the playbook. You can watch the videos on that website for free. Requires no email address, requires no phone number. You can literally just go there. How do you fortify your home? How do you make your home burglar proof? How do you prevent your cars from being stolen? Especially if you're in Canada right now and you're listening to this, or if you're in some specific states. I don't know are you in New Jersey right now?
Yeah, I'm in New Jersey.
How's your crime? Is it okay?
I live in the part of the state where it's all cows and nobody locks their doors.
Okay, that's great. Not affected. So, but that's how they could find us. Yeah, Corrie George on Instagram or Facebook. And that's, and then YESA and Canada First on social media.
Very cool. Well, Corey, thanks for hanging out with me today. And for those of you watching, reminder to like this video, leave us a comment, and smash that subscribe button. And we will catch you next time.